Straub is going to lead us in the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. First item on the agenda this evening will be a conflict of interest review, and to facilitate the conflict of interest review, I would ask our secretary, Ms. Meyer, to call the roll, and at that time, you can state whether or not you have a potential conflict of interest with any item on the agenda. Ms. Meyer?
Ms. Abbott,
Here and none.
Mr. Smith,
Here and none.
Ms. Hurd,
Here and none.
Chair Birch,
Here and none.
Mr. Barry,
Here and none.
Mr. Strong.
Here, none.
I have no.
Thank you, Ms. Meyer. Before we go to the approval of the agenda, did everyone on the planning commission receive a copy of and the time to actually review Mr. Spiegel's letter regarding bed and breakfasts? And as it is an item on the agenda, but if everyone has not had the opportunity to review Mr. Spiegel's letter, I would defer that to our next meeting so that we're all familiar with the information. Did anyone not receive it? Or you did not receive it? Thank you. In that case, as the chair, I would move to move discussion item A to our next meeting so that we are all familiar with and have the same information before we discuss this item. May I have a second to that motion? It has been moved and seconded that we defer item 8A on the agenda to our next meeting because of a lack of the some members of the planning commission having the same information that the rest of us have. Are there any other changes to the agenda that we would like to make? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended. That's why we have a recording secretary to keep us honest. The motion on the floor is to defer the item number 8, discussion item, review and discussion of the Township Board's September 16, 2025 recommendations regarding short-term rentals and bed and breakfast to our January meeting, in recognition of the fact that all members of the Planning Commission do not have access to the same information. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries. Now I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Vice Chair Hurd and seconded by Township Board Delegate Abbott. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, no. Motion carries. Next item on our agenda is public comment of things that are not on the agenda. Does anyone in the public care to address the board this evening, the commission this evening? Mr. Spiegel?
Joseph Spiegel, 7905 Sauer. I'm here as a citizen, not as a member of any other commission. Since you've deferred the short-term rental issue, the next meeting, I think I should wait till then, right?
That would be appropriate, sir, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion, members of the public? Hearing none, we will move next to our action item 7A, Planning Commission bylaws discussion, amendments to Article 5 and Article 6 of the Planning Commission bylaws. Mr. Ryan, as DPG, would you care to brief the Planning Commission, please, on what we have generated here?
Sure. Good evening, planning commissioners. Today we have in front of you a continuation of a conversation regarding some amendments to the planning commission bylaws, specifically amendments to Article 5 and Article 6. In the draft planning commission bylaws in front of you today, the most significant changes are in the order of business and agenda section. Last meeting, the planning commission shared a handful of thoughts on how the agenda should look. And I did my best to reflect those comments made at the November meeting. If anyone has any questions or any comments, please do not hesitate to ask.
I guess Chair, if I may ask that, as a reminder, why we chose to put approval of the agenda before conflict of interest. I just need to be reminded why we did that.
Sure. Planning Commission Chair Birch commented that you need to have an agenda in place before there can be any conflicts. So essentially, it's just a formality. If there is no agenda approved, you can't really have a conflict.
I was just wondering if there was a conflict, would that ever cause an amendment to the agenda? Especially if there's multiple conflicts.
If,
Just something I thought about.
excellent question, Ms. Hurd, and if there are multiple conflicts or conflicts of interest, once we have defined the agenda, then it will be a motion by and discussion of the board, a decision by the board, whether that conflict of interest really exists. And if it does, the person with the conflict would then be asked to leave the commission table during the discussion and adjudication of that particular topic. Did that answer your question?
I think so, unless a conflict of interest of multiple people would cause there to be a lack of quorum on anything that an action is taken.
Potentially that is possible, yes.
So, but it sounds like that would be a very rare occurrence, so I'm not too worried about it. I just wanted to
Understood.
pose the question. Thank you.
Are there any more questions or comments from the commissioners?
Mr. Chair. I've got a handful, and they're not specifically to Fletcher. I don't know if you want me to wait until we're discussing amongst ourselves.
Mr. Straub, you have the floor.
All right, so I've been not understanding for a long time why we have laid out the meeting so we limit public comment at any time for any reason. So the first call to the public will be limited to non-agenda items, which seems to me to be kind of overkill. Let the public talk about whatever they want. But if they happen to want to talk about agenda items, that seems like a logical time to do it. But if that's the way we're going to do it, and we will discuss, the public will discuss only non-agenda items at that point, then number 7, we're saying action items, which is unfinished business, then new business, and public comment as appropriate. I'm curious as to what the mechanism or the format will be for that public comment. Will we treat each action item like public hearing and open it up for public comment to that specific item? And then if we do that, does that mean that the public cannot discuss discussion items? Because we're saying non-agenda items only under proposed number 6, new proposed number 6. And then we may open it up for discussion for action items. It seems like, according to this, interpreted strictly, the public would not be able to comment on discussion items until those discussion items have already been discussed down at agenda item number 13. So I don't want to be overthinking it, but it doesn't seem to flow correctly with me. On the other hand, if we did not restrict the first public comment to only agenda items, they could talk about whatever. Agenda items, discussion items, what the weather is like, whatever's bothering them. I don't see that that would be a particular problem.
Mr. Straub, I'm going to address the issue because this was primarily my idea. The reason I felt that it appropriate to not have the public address items that are on the agenda during public comment is because, especially if it is a particularly interesting or disagreeable or subject, or people have a strong interest in it, I think it's more appropriate that we hear that during the discussion of the item when we, as a planning commission, are considering the item, rather than someone having a strong objection, which they mentioned during public comment, and then we can conveniently forget about or ignore if we don't give the public the opportunity to address it while we, the planning commission, are addressing it. It was the timeliness and what I consider the appropriateness of having the public address. I'm going to use Mr. Spiegel as an example here. If Mr. Spiegel has a particular concern about, let's say, a bed and breakfast, I think it more appropriate that he should be able to address us during bed and breakfast comments rather than voicing his comments earlier and then relying on our goodwill to take those comments into consideration when we are discussing the item. And especially if it is a contentious item, I think the general public would feel more listened to if it was during our discussion that they voiced their concerns. And what guarantee is this that the public will be able to be heard during the discussion item? I consider that to be the responsibility of the chair, that the public will have the opportunity to address an issue while we are discussing them.
So for action items, it sounds like the intent is that each action item will be treated similar to a public hearing. We get to that item either before, after, during our discussion, you're going to open it up, or the agenda will allow that you're going to open it up for public comment. So Are we expanding that to discussion items also then, or not?
I hadn't considered discussion items, but I think it would be appropriate in that case also.
Yeah, then I at least understand the consistency of what we're doing. I'm not sure how in action that will play out, but seems like the only contentious meetings we ever have are public hearings, so maybe it just is of little consequence. I like the idea of being able to engage anybody that wants to talk to us at the point where that item of interest occurs, as long as we're not being too limiting, and it means we're cutting them out of whatever they want to talk to us about, even if it's an agenda item, but not an action item. So, yeah, I think if we then modify this to use the same wording, the red wording on item 7, action items, add and public comment as appropriate. If we add that to proposed number 8, discussion items, then I think that at least is logical to me.
Makes sense, sir. And would you care to offer that as an amendment to the update
Sure.
of the bylaws that we're discussing this evening?
Sure, I move that item 8, discussion items, includes the wording and public comment as appropriate.
Do we have support?
Second.
It has been moved by Commissioner Straub and supported by Commissioner Abbott that we include the phrase including public comment as appropriate for discussion items, item L8 as well. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries.
Mr. Chair, another comment. I just question all the red under item F, quorum, where it lays out if the chair is absent, the quorum is present, the vice chair will preside. If the vice chair is also absent, planning commission will select a temporary chair. Is this the logical place that somebody would look for that? For example, if the chair and vice chair unable to attend a meeting, and the 4 or 5 people that are left behind start to scramble, well, holy smokes, what do we do now? Are they going to have to read through the entire document? They've got a quorum, so I wouldn't expect that looking for quorum is the place that you're going to find what do we do now. I'm not sure I've got a better idea. It might seem more logical to me where we lay out the responsibilities of the officers, and the chair conducts the meeting, and the chair's absence, the vice chair does, and that might be the place. I think that's that might even be under vacancies. That might be the more logical place that somebody looks, oh, well, they're not there either. Now what do we do? Oh, it says right here, we elect somebody. Might not be that big of a deal. I'm just envisioning that if the person who normally does it isn't here, and the person who sometimes does it isn't here, the rest of us might be fumbling a little bit looking for it.
Except for who can't do it, which would be the township board representative.
Right.
I understand your concern, and as this wasn't my idea, I'm going to defer to the Director of Planning and Zoning to defend this particular change. Mr. Ryer?
I get where you're coming from, Commissioner Straub. You do have to sift through about 7 pages of the bylaws to get to this unique circumstance. I do, however, think that it is a rare circumstance in that there would probably be ample heads up if.
Well, and you will be the person who keeps us from messing it up.
That's correct. At this point, I don't know of a better location than this quorum section, and I think it makes most sense here. But I'm always willing to hear your thoughts. You were talking about, let's see, under Article 2, you were thinking? Already?
Just because, no, it wasn't Article 2, it was Article 5, I think, chair vacancy. Now that's talking about the position is permanently vacated. But if I'm reading through this, trying to figure out, oh no, so what do we do now? Kind of cookbooking my way through it. That one at least would catch my attention, but I think overall, right, does it really matter? No, because you are gonna know what to do and we will most likely have heads up ahead of time, so we're not, sitting here rattling papers at meeting time.
Commissioner Chair, I mean, sorry.
Is
Couldn't we just maybe put in a little clause called succession? And then it just lays it out because we're assuming Fletcher will always be our director of planning and zoning. So if we just put maybe a small section that just says succession that lays all of that out in the rare instance that it's gonna happen, then succession would stick out.
Mr. Chair, yeah, that seems like a fine idea to me. I don't mean to imply that Fletcher has reached the pinnacle of his career.
No, I don't want him to go anywhere.
But I would expect
Stay.
that someday somebody else will at least be able to be familiar with the bylaws.
Right.
But, Mr. Straub, I also might mention that, because the bylaws are part of the required reading material of the planning commission, when first appointed, everyone is familiar with the bylaws.
That is a great assumption, which kind of brings me up to my last point, which we can't act on tonight, I guess, because it wasn't previously discussed, but this still does need some additional cleanup. For example, on page 6 of 12, secretary's duties, there's a hanging half a sentence there that's been there for quite some time. Secretary's duties, number 3, review the draft of the meetings and submit them for approval to the planning commission, period. The secretary may delegate this duty to planning staff, period. And then it just says within 14 days of the meeting to each planning commission member, which, doesn't make any sense. That we ought to clean up at some point. And then we've kind of maybe discussed this a little bit in the past, but we might also want to revisit, this is on page 7 of 12, H, voting, number 4, roll call votes, voting for the adoption of resolutions shall be by roll call vote, recorded as yes or no. Any member may request other votes be conducted as a roll call vote. And then on 5, voice votes, we're talking about yes or no. And I think I brought it up a long time ago that seems kind of unnatural. And we've got 2 or 3 examples of it tonight where it's more natural to ask for yay or nay, or aye or nay, rather than yes or no. So we might just want to think about what's consistent with the way the township board votes or other bodies, and some future review of these, clean up some more stuff. But I think that's all I've got for what's in front of us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Straub. Anyone else?
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Meyer?
under the secretary's duties part, since that is just a fragment, did we just make a motion to remove it tonight, or do we need to wait?
Originally, I would have answered to remove it tonight. However, with the several items that have been raised that I think are very appropriate and desirable changes to our bylaws, I would suggest that we defer to our next meeting or even a subsequent meeting the consideration of changing the bylaws to allow our planning staff to make the appropriate changes to the bylaws that we have discussed.
Mr. Chair, and just so everybody's clear that, that half a sentence or whatever I'm complaining about, that's been in there since at least 2021. And I think there was some intention at some point that we get, and I don't know about minutes being made public before they are approved by this body, but in some cases becomes a bigger thing at ZBA, where an applicant needs to act on whatever action the body took prior to those minutes coming back to that body and being approved, which in our case is usually a month. ZBA's case, it might be several months if there's no business to conduct, and yet somebody is still going to take action on the appeal that they were just granted. So I think that had something to do with that is probably, a bigger issue than us, that we might want to, ask Fletcher or Commissioner Abbott, figure out with township or township board.
Mr. Chair, can I clarify a statement you made?
You, yes, ma'am.
Although minutes are not approved by the body, once the secretary has reviewed the minutes, they are available for anybody in the public to request. They're not approved, but a public person can request the minutes
When do they appear on the website? Is that only after they're approved?
after they're approved. Every meeting, I make changes and I send them to Sam, and she puts them on the website the next day with the changes. And that is consistent with all of the boards and committees.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Anything further?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Mr. Smith?
This just might be my misunderstanding, but back to the agenda items. I don't see public hearing. We have approval of the agenda, conflict of interest, public comment, action items. Is public hearing a standalone item, or is that a version of an action item if there's public involved?
I will have to defer to my predecessor on this. Mr. Straub, when you were chair, did you include a public hearing statement in the agenda for every meeting, or was it only as required?
Yeah, that's a great catch, that our agenda tonight, we get down to number 6, public hearings, none. Which is where public hearing would go if we had one. And then the logic there is that, well, right after the public hearing, we're going to deal with it and take action. So that's why it is where it is. But yeah, that's a great catch that in our bylaws, the order of business L, page 8 of 12. Yeah, we don't have a spot for public hearing. So yeah, it seems like we got to fix that.
And if we are adding an item for public hearing, does that change the previous discussions about when public comment is appropriate?
Well, that's part of what I was getting at with my comments, that there is always discussion from the public at a public hearing. And I think we're kind of expanding that to every agenda item now. Well, discussion items and action items, not every agenda item, but so it would operate in pretty much the same way. But yeah, it is a standalone thing. There is a statutory requirement. But it's interesting that some of us that have looked at this for years haven't picked up on, well, it's always in the agenda. We rarely have a public hearing unless, there's something that ends up being, usually it's a zoning change. Yet there's not even a placeholder for it in our order of business and agenda in the bylaws. So yeah, I think that's the logical thing to do. Just put it in the bylaws in the same order that it appears on tonight's agenda. And then if something else, we'll just fix up next time.
I agree with that, Mr. Straub, and for the benefit of the planning commission as a whole, I want to emphasize the fact that I see it as part of my role as chair of the planning commission to involve as much public input in our decisions as we can garner. And that's part of the rationale in requesting these changes to the bylaws so that we will actually ask for more public participation and as we go about performing our own duties.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Straub.
kind of along these same lines, I think we used to have a line item election of officers that only applies once a year, the
Yes.
first meeting of the year. It might be that we want to put that into the bylaws and it just doesn't need to be printed out. I mean, especially when you're chair, you see every agenda says election of officers, you expect you're going to be overthrown at any moment. But at least if we put it in the right order, in the order of business, in the bylaws, and then staff just makes sure that the first meeting of the year, it appears in whatever that order ought to be.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Bennett?
So under L after 15, it says that each calendar, the first meeting of each calendar year shall include an action item that is election of officers. Although that, I think that's sufficient, rather than adding things in. The other thing that I'll just add is that I know when we've had 2 public hearings and then subsequent actions after that, it gets a little awkward. Because you might have a public hearing on, I think we've had them where we had a public hearing on, home occupations, but then also one on a wetland setback. And we had 2 public hearings because we were dealing with 2 text amendments. But then you went to the action items on each one and it felt awkward during that time. I remember planning commissioners commenting on that. So my recommendation would be not necessarily to say that the public hearings have to be something on their own, but maybe have them be part of action items. You might not always take action, but then you can defer at that point. Just in your bylaws, so you're not painting yourselves into a corner where you have to, it gets a little awkward.
Mr. Chair. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, there have been a couple of times where it seems like the appropriate thing to do is go right from the public hearing to planning commission discussion and action. However, one comment to the election of officers, I think we ought to designate where that goes in the agenda and not just say an action item. Because if we put that action item with all the other action items, it ends up after public comment, after public hearing. It could be the first of, it could become item 7A. It seems like it should come no later than approval of the agenda. So next time we take a look at these under, for whatever reason, it's in item, it's not item 15, it's under L, just kind of a standalone comment. I think we ought to just specify where that goes. And that will help staff and future staff. So we don't get, sometimes halfway through the agenda, okay, now let's elect officers. And we really should have done that as far to the beginning of them, according to me, as far to the beginning of the meeting as would be practical.
Thank you, Mr. Straub. For the benefit of DPZ RAR, do you have a suggestion of where that particular statement should be in the bylaws? If I may continue, you notice that there are several things in that catch-all statement, not just the election of officers. ZBA update, for instance.
I don't recall that we've ever had that. You know, as an agenda item, at least, there may be some information at the end where we kind of go around who's got something to say. But yeah, I don't recall that ever actually being on the agenda, even though we do ask for township supervisor, township board report, whatever.
Yes. Although it's not in the minutes now, the township supervisor, who is not here generally, recording secretary, she does have a space for comments. Planning commission members, without identifying the ZBA representative or the township board's representative.
You know,
So is it just by osmosis that we decide that all of these people should have the opportunity to address the board, or do we actually need that in our agenda? Personally, I think concerns of planning commission members, knowing full well that Commissioner Smith is also the representative to the ZBA, that if there's anything from the ZBA, he will share it. And by the same logic, Ms. Abbott, as representative of the township board, can keep us up to date on what's going on with the township board. And I realize as I read this, I just stepped on my tongue, because item 11 is the Township Board of Trustees update.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Ryer.
I had a second to think about the election of officers statement at the end. I think we should keep it as it is currently, as an action item. Ultimately, the only action this board or this commission's taking under the previous year election is the approval of the agenda. And it should just be the first action item. So if there's more action to take, it'll be done under new officer selections, not previous. So maybe we could add the first action item to be specific.
Sure, and I guess as a practical matter, it's highly unlikely we'd start off the year with a public hearing, so that's not really forcing it down in the agenda. Yeah, I think.
I
there's
think
logic to
that's
that.
an excellent idea, Mr. Ryer. Further comments? Since the chair does typically not make a motion, do we have, or may I ask for a motion to defer further discussion item on the bylaws to our next meeting, to allow staff to condense what we have been discussing this evening and present us with a clean copy of recommended changes to our bylaws?
I move what you just said. Assuming, well, I don't care which one of us, I could second it if you want, but that assumes that Janice is able to get that. You'll get that at least when you go back through and listen on the minutes, huh, for the minutes.
You made a motion.
I don't care which one of us, that's, I mean, it's, the chair can decide, but my point was that as long as you got the chair's comments, I think he stated it perfectly. It would be difficult to try to repeat
And
that.
it was, the motion was seconded by Commissioner Barry. Oh, we have a motion on the floor to defer further consideration of action item 7A to allow the planning staff to condense the comments that have been made into a clean copy of a recommendation to change the bylaws. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Motion carries. And I'm sorry, Mr. Ryer, I should have asked you, are you comfortable with the discussion and the recording thereof to where you know where you want to go with this?
Yes.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is our annual report. And Mr. Ryer, because this is you authored this, would you please share?
Sure. Good evening, Planning Commissioners. Hi. In accordance with the Michigan Planning Enabling Act, the Planning Commission is required to provide an annual written report to the Township Board outlining its operations, planning activities, and any recommendations. I have in the packet my draft annual report. It's similar to the report or to the design of the report last year. But as you can see, the Planning Commission had 6 ordinance amendments sent to the board and approved. We did have consideration and a recommendation of a property owner initiated text amendment, even though it was first started in 2024, it came to its conclusion 2025. The commission did not have any zoning map amendments or master plan amendments. I did reference the ZBA meetings and the ZBA action, even though that's not this board, it was planning actions that occurred over the 2025 calendar year. And then under miscellaneous items, I referenced the election of officers, the short-term rental committee and their actions, and the formation of the master plan review committee. Additionally, staff added a handful of recommendations for the 2026 calendar year. I have referenced some ongoing issues with the zoning ordinance regarding lakefront zoning lot sizes, as well as some action items in the master plan that have yet to be addressed by the Planning Commission for zoning ordinance text amendments. But I feel free to ask any questions you want or make any comments. I would like to forward this to the Township Board for their January meeting.
Hearing no additional, Ms. Meyer, go ahead, please.
Mr. Chair, I do have some typo comments. Did you want to go through those or just, like you said, rapidly, I can go through them either one.
Because I will be asking for the planning commission approval of this report. I think is appropriate if you mention these comments now so we know what we are approving.
On page 2 of 6 of the report, under number 5, amending Article 4, it talks about short-term rentals and the word short is misspelled. It's spelled.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay, and then on page 4 of 6, under the ZBA, it starts at the bottom of 3 of 6, and then it's the first item on page 4. I think they wanted to add a 2-story addition.
Which page?
4 of 6, the report. First of all.
Oh. Yeah, I think that's good to revise that.
I'll check with that is spelled correctly. So. Okay, also on page 4, there is, I'm talking about the short-term rental committee. It says, like the third line in, they met regularly from December 2024 through April, that should be 2025.
Okay.
And also on that short-term rental under sub-item 2, where it talks about short-term rental licenses, the word rental is not spelled correctly.
I would certainly put a limit on them.
And that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Meyer. Any other suggestions or changes?
Thank you.
Hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion to accept the report of the Director of Planning and Zoning for furtherance to the Township Board.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Abbott. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries. Next item on our agenda this evening is Mr. Ryer dominating the Planning Commission this evening, the 2026 calendar year meeting schedule.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. In front of you, we have the 2026 Planning Commission calendar. I have also included the holiday schedule for your reference, which was recently adopted by the board at their previous meeting. In yellow, you will see 3 Planning Commission meetings that fall close to holidays. So I just wanted the Planning Commission to take a look at those and see if there are any changes that you want to make to that schedule.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Straub.
let's start out with one question, the township's holiday schedule. What about January 1st? I assume, maybe incorrectly, that that's a township holiday.
Yep. Thursday, January 1st.
Yeah,
2027.
2027, but I assume 2026 being the 2026 calendar that
Right, so that would be on this calendar.
early
year
the 2025 calendar, because it goes from New Year's Eve to New Year's.
Yep. Yep, so they have the January meetings already listed in that schedule to accommodate
And
first
then,
month of the year.
Mr. Chair, the others that are highlighted, having meetings the weeks of major holidays may affect our quorum. I mean, for example, I was gone last month because the meeting fell in Thanksgiving week. Christmas is in a couple of days. We've got everybody here. That doesn't seem to be a factor. So maybe Memorial Day also not a factor for maintaining quorum. And then my last thing on this topic, just kind of a stray comment that well, Fletcher and I were taking a look at what I guess then becomes the old calendar, January 25 to January 2026 calendar. And it shows tonight's meeting or the December Planning Commission meeting. And this is still this way on the township. I mean, somebody probably ought to take that up with the township, but it's still on the township's official calendar that they approved that the December Planning Commission meeting should have been December 18th. The upcoming events or the next meeting schedule or whatever, it shows tonight. But I thought maybe I've just been carrying around an old copy, but I checked it right before the meeting. It's on the website that way. So
Yeah, that is,
Kind of a moot point now because we're sliding into this one,
definitely a typo.
but I'm not sure how that stuff gets picked up. Well, I don't know if it was a typo originally.
It's December 18th is a Thursday, and this commission never meets on a Thursday.
But it would have avoided Christmas week was all, so it may have been intentional. I don't recall the discussion way back. Anyhow, that was all my calendar comments. Thank you.
Any further comments on the calendar? Hearing none, the floor will entertain a motion to approve the January 2026, January 2027 calendar as presented.
Second.
Moved by Mayor, supported by Abbott, to approve the January 2026 to January 2027 calendar as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, our discussion item has been deferred to our next meeting. So we have a approval of planning commission minutes, and you will notice that at your desk this evening, we have replacement minutes. These are to correct a typographical error that was made in the minutes that were circulated. So when we are evaluating the minutes this evening, please pay attention to the new set of minutes. I have it on very good authority that the only change that was made to these minutes was the words "some federal agencies" printed in red. Anything else that may have been appropriate for the original minutes would still be appropriate.
The statement in number 8, has been expanded upon. 8A and 8C. That was expanded upon also. It's all in red, so
Mhm.
Yes.
this is Secretary Mayor's minutes. Her approved minutes that you are approving. So these are not amendments. This is her, what should have been in more packet, but it wasn't.
Corrections rather than amendments. Are there any further changes or amendments or deletions to the minutes? Hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the replacement minutes as presented.
So moved.
So moved by Commissioner Smith, support by Commissioner Hurd. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Motion carries. Next item on our agenda this evening will be correspondence. And we have Mr. Ryer provided us with a letter he had received from Mr. Spiegel. And that will be discussed at our next meeting. Is there any further correspondence of which we should be aware? Mr. Ryer?
No additional correspondence, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Ryer.
Mr. Chair, just a request on correspondence. Would it be possible for each of us to get a hard copy of that before we leave out of here tonight? Is that difficult? I mean, next month's packet, I guess it'd be okay too, but if it's not difficult and we could get it tonight and have it with us, that'd be nice. Please and thank you.
You don't need to print one for me. I already printed my own.
And I printed mine also.
I also did.
Well, then maybe never mind. I can print my own darn thing.
3 copies.
Further discussion on correspondence? Ms. Abbott, would you please provide us with the Township Board of Trustees update?
All right, well, we approved several appointments and reappointments of several committees. They're including but not limited to farmland, open space preservation. There were 3 appointments. Planning Commission had 2, Zoning Board of Appeals had 1. We also approved the 2026 meeting schedule. We had the first of 3 touches on the Master Plan Review Committee where we are requesting per diem for the members of that committee, plus requesting to have a recording secretary. January, this will be a discussion item, and in February, it will be voted on. We will be having a budget work session at the January meeting, so that should be thrilling. That is my report.
Thank you, Ms. Abbott. Any comments or questions regarding the report from our Township Board representative? Hearing none, we will move to item 12, concerns of Planning Commission members, Director of Planning Zoning, Township Supervisor, and Recording Secretary. And as chair, I do have a request for staff. As you are aware, we were provided at the last meeting with a letter from the township attorney, which would require going into closed session. It did not appear on our agenda this evening. I would like staff to contact our township attorney and ascertain if we can legally share that letter with the Master Plan Review Committee, because it is information that will be relevant to their operation.
Okay.
Thank you, DPZ Ryer. And other comments from the chair? As has been mentioned several times, that we have established since our last meeting, we've established a Master Plan Review Committee. This committee consists of Chair, Ms. Chandra Hurd, Vice Chair,
Yeah, we elected a secretary. I don't believe we elected.
we did not elect a vice chair.
Thank you. I have been going over that meeting and I was like, did we really just skip over electing? So we will need to elect a chair at the next one.
You know, vice chair.
Yeah, vice chair, yeah.
Well, that is up to the committee
Yeah.
themselves, whether or not they decide that they need a chair. And if you hadn't already surmised as much, the Township Board representative to the Master Plan Review Committee is Planning Commissioner Abbott. Our third member of the Planning Commission on the Master Plan Review Committee is Commissioner, excuse me, got all choked up here, as Commissioner Berry. And our other 2 members of the Master Plan Review Committee, just by sheer coincidence, happen to be in the audience this evening, Mr. Spiegel and Miss Linda Halbert, yes. And so these 5 people are going to solve all of our problems with the master plan and its review. Yes, we are required to do it every 5 years, but there have been so many things come down the pike in the last 6 months that as your chair, I felt that it was necessary that we address them now. We've got to get our master plan in conformance with 2025. And I can think of no better way to do it than have a master plan review committee that can determine where the master plan might be deficient and make those recommendations to us, because we can modify the master plan at any time, even though we are required to do it only every 5 years. And with that, I will open the floor to any questions for me. And I am through with the chair concerns.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Strauss.
since we're talking about master plan, I'd like to kind of have us recalibrate briefly on master plan. I think it's a good idea to have a review committee and you know, kind of update what's going on in the world around us. But we should also put it in perspective. The master plan, which is not yet 2 years old, is our vision document of what we want the township to look like in 10, 20, 30 or more years. And it is based on the 5 cornerstones that the township board had identified and were reinforced through the planning commission's multiple community engagement sessions and polling. Everybody in the township had an opportunity to give their opinions on what essentially was the poll from the 12, 20 years before, I don't recall. And update it, you know, as of a couple of years ago. And that also reinforced that those 5 cornerstones are what people want to see. And effectively, little old Dexter Township, kind of a sleepy bedroom community for a lot of things that go on around us. And master plan is not a document to enumerate all of our fears for the future and concerns and try to legislate around them. We do some of that with the zoning ordinance. So I would not expect that the master plan needs to list every possible thing that could happen to us, like somebody wants to put in a museum or an amusement park or a jet engine repair and test facility or, you know, whatever. But in the context of what Dexter Township is, we're not going to have somebody try to build an automotive assembly plant here because we don't have the infrastructure for it. We have, you know, no railroad, we have no expressway. So should we review the master plan with the quickly changing world around, with respect to the quickly changing world around? Yes, for sure. But we should resist the temptation that we have to enumerate all of these issues in the master plan. Master plan lays out what Dexter Township is supposed to be into the future. And most everything that we're talking about or concerned about is contrary to that. So that's already covered. What we should do is make sure that the zoning ordinance is up to date, ready to deal with those kinds of things. I think kind of parallel path. I'm not saying don't review the master plan. You know, the one that was adopted the beginning of 2024, not quite 2 years ago, I think replaced the one that had been adopted like 13 years prior to that. So should be reviewed more frequently. But let's also make sure that the zoning ordinance is what we need it to be. Some of us will recall that when what became Hilltop, is that what it is? Hillside Acres came into existence, that we could not even require a vegetation type buffer. So now you drive by North Territorial or Dexter Town Hall Road and you see a lot of backyards, and it does not look like Dexter Township used to look. And I said at the time, I think a property owner ought to be able to develop their property to its fullest extent, but it's limited by how it affects other people as communicated through the zoning ordinance. And it was a very unsatisfying experience for some, I think, that you can't maintain the rural character even driving down North Territorial because we're not allowed to put in a buffer between the road and all these backyards now. So anyhow, I'll get off of my soapbox. It's just master plan is the big picture, but we implement that through the zoning ordinance, and let's make sure that is what we need it to be. All the rest of this stuff, yeah, might we be a good home for a data center? I don't know, but I'm concerned that we just had an upgrade this past summer of our electrical lines between Majestic Substation on Madden Road way to the east toward Ann Arbor. So and we kind of, because of the way state law usurped local authority, we took that on as a special project a couple of years ago for the renewable energy. Because we could be a prime location for that, given the upgraded electric lines. I think it's less of an issue that somebody could put together enough contiguous acres for a data center or an auto plant or a mine for rare earth minerals or something. But I just want to make sure that we don't have holes in the zoning ordinance, that even though we have spoken and set the vision in the master plan or any future updates to it, that we've got those two things tied together so that zoning ordinance is aligned properly with master plan. Anyhow, as I said a minute ago, off my soapbox, this time I'm really off my soapbox.
Well, there were 5 reasons that came about that I thought that a master plan review committee would be a desirable exercise. And that is with the advent of short-term rentals, data centers, renewable energy, biofuel processing facilities, and as of June of this year, housing. Does our master plan address these items sufficiently as represented by the zoning ordinance to protect Dexter Township? So what happens to us doesn't happen to, or what happened to, I'm sorry, Saline Township doesn't happen to us in Dexter Township. I wanted to try to address these issues as thoroughly as possible. So if any of these were to come into existence, other than, of course, the STRs and the renewable energy, which I think Dexter Township has handled quite effectively, I feel that with the public input and a review committee to just keeping us covered was the impetus behind my desire for this review committee. And under the very able leadership of Ms. Hurd, I'm sure that the master plan review committee will accomplish the goal and be very respectful of the zoning ordinance and the existing master plan as you so eloquently described.
Thank you.
Any other comments from planning commissioners? Okay, hearing none. Director of Planning and Zoning, anything that you care to share with us that you have not had the opportunity to yet?
No concerns this evening.
Thank you. As our consultant, Ms. Moton?
I just wanted to alert the planning commission to 2 opportunities through Michigan Association of Planning. One is a 2-part webinar that's happening January 8th and January 15th. And I had gone to these sessions at Michigan Association of Planning where they were looking at a deep dive and all the way back to the 1920s through every gubernatorial administration since. About how the state of Michigan had looked at planning statewide and what entities had done that. the impetus for that is that Michigan Association of Planning is looking at whether to advocate for something like that being reestablished, or especially with a new governor coming in, after the election in the upcoming year. So, if you're interested, I can send you the link. Also, if you are interested in planning and zoning essentials, there is a seminar for that on March 18th in Frankenmuth.
Thank you, Ms. Minna.
You're welcome.
Our township supervisor doesn't have to be here this evening. Ms. Miller, recording secretary, do you have anything you care to share with us? Thank you, Ms. Miller. And now we are back to the public comment. Hearing none. Future agenda items. Next month, we will be electing the new chair, the vice chair, and the secretary, and a recommendation to the township board for the planning commission representative to the ZBA. We will also be continuing our discussion on data centers and master plan review committee introduction. Wait, I will defer to Ms. Hurd on what she wishes to share with the planning commission at that time. And again, if Mr. Ryer, if you could let me know the decision of the township attorney, because I would really like to get that information out to the master plan review committee. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, one other thing, for future agenda is the deferred number 8 discussion item. That needs to go on the future agenda.
Chair, also the updated bylaws.
Oh, yeah, well, as we deferred them, they are obviously not on our agenda as printed, but I know that our director of planning and zoning has recorded the relevant information, so they will be on our next agenda. Further comments or questions? The floor will entertain a motion to adjourn the December 23rd, 2025 Planning Commission meeting.
So moved.
So moved by Commissioner Straub.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Barry. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, no. Everyone, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, have a safe and happy New Year. We will see you next year.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you.
Smooth or whatever.
Okay, now in 15 minutes.
That's great.
Nice.
That was